So that reverse is important because it allows you to prove that it wasn't you. Like, you can't be falsely accused. So that gives you what I think a lot of people wanting anonymity really want, except they just go about it with the bazooka trying to kill cockroaches, right? What they really want is the bug spray. You don't want the bazooka, you want the bug spray. And the bug spray is having transparency, but just keeping your privacy, not just blowing out any traceability. Because obviously, if you don't have any traceability at all, then the problem is not only are legal abiding citizens going to use your system, the vast majority are going to be illegal activities on the system. Because clearly, if there's no ways to trace anything, why wouldn't criminals use it? I mean, it's almost like that's kind of asking for trouble.
Hello world, welcome to Be in the Moment. Today we have a very inspiring and current conversation with our guest hosts, Jerry David Chan and Brittany Bitts. Jerry is a thought leader in Bitcoin and the world of finance for well more than a decade, and someone that we have looked to for insight, and many companies have looked to for his advising and his wisdom. Brittany Bitts is a leading journalist in the Bitcoin and the world of finance space by interviewing all the leading influencers, and I am a huge Uber fan of both of them. So I'm delighted for you both to be here in conversation with me. And also shout out to our friend Sylvain in the chat. We're so glad you're here in this discussion. So today we are focused on privacy and transparency. How can we have both on chain, on an immutable ledger, on a protocol for the entire data economy of the world? So welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Rory.
That was a heck of an introduction, Rory.
Thank you. Well, my friend here in Marietta, she says, girl, you got a lot of air, but it's not hot air.
A lot of subtext to that one.
Yeah. So welcome. So Jerry, you had caught on to this theme. I think it was Kurt that did the tweet. Did you see Kurt's tweet way back when?
I probably did. I need a refresher on which specific one. I pretty much read most of his stuff that he tweets when I indulge myself in little twitterings every so often. So it's the one where he speaks more on the topic of privacy and transparency, or was it on CBDCs?
Right. Well, good question. So that is where we've merged the two topics so far, is that Kurt had brought up that you could have privacy on a transparent system, such as the ring signatures with Monero could work with a transparent system on the BSC blockchain. And then due to the fact that CBDC is a current affair, I've sort of melded that into the discussion as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kurt often, phrases things in a way in which most people can find easier to digest than others, including myself, just because it's hard to pick a very technical topic and then selectively say the parts of it which can really relate, what people not in this technical space can relate to, so they can immediately realize the usefulness of the thing. And this is one of them where I think this fundamental, I mean, everybody wants privacy. I mean, I think all sides wants privacy, but I think the methods by which the different groups in blockchain space are trying to get at that goal of privacy are very different, and one which is based on you get privacy by starting with an truly anonymous based system, and the other one, which is what Kurt's referring to, and which is what we're all building on Bitcoin SV, is the one which is based on a transparent system, and they seem to, it's like so juxtaposed that they seem like there are diametric opposites, right? How can we get privacy? How can we get the same goal from two opposite ends of the spectrum? It just seems like one of those things which is like, like when you learn about infinity in calculus class the first time, it's like, what? It's like, how is dividing by zero infinity? I don't get it. I mean, and it's like one of those things. And it's ironic because everybody can see one. I mean, the simple one, you get privacy through anonymity. That's simple. I mean, even a dog can understand that. Well, maybe not dog.
Well, break it down. What do you mean?
Like for instance, I mean, when people say they want privacy, it means like if you have a private transaction, right? So that's one place to start, right? Some things are not private. For instance, our public elected officials, right? Their business, while they are in the role of their government positions or whatever, are not private. By definition, they are public servants. So they do not enjoy all the privacy rights that a regular private citizen would. I mean, some, they have to report XYZ, how much is their income here and there. They have to report that, you have to do certain things a certain way. You just don't have as much privacy as a regular person. They gave that up by being a public servant. But if you're just a regular private citizen, what most people mean by privacy is like, if you choose to engage in a transaction, a legal transaction, right? Because if it's illegal, you have no rights to privacy anymore, right? Because there are, just because you murder somebody in private doesn't mean you get to keep that private. It's still murder, right? I mean, so crimes aside, if you do a legal transaction that's private, then only the parties that were privy to that transaction should know about that transaction. That's privacy. Now, the caveat is, except if there is a legitimate court order or reason which law enforcement really and has gone through the process of obtaining that court order or warrant or whatever like that, so that they can breach the veil of privacy. And this also exists in corporate law as well, right? There's the corporate veil, and there's certain things that you can't share among companies and executives and such, even insider trading laws. But there are cases, exceptions where, if for law enforcement reasons, that's the one thing that can pierce the veil. That's privacy. So if that's privacy, clearly, if we have a system where everything's anonymous, where nobody can ever trace anything, then obviously, yeah, I suppose then the only people who knew that the transaction took place could know about it, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is easy to follow as like 1 + 1 is 2. But the problem is that that's kind of like, you have a problem with cockroaches in your house, and you decide that the only way to solve this is with the AR-16 or, a bazooka, right? And you start blowing up parts of your house where you see a cockroach. Yeah, you got rid of the cockroach problem, all right. That's for sure. But you also don't have a house anymore, right? And you will probably also harmed your neighbors, did a whole bunch of like damage, and you're probably going to get sued left, right, and center. So that's the anonymity to reach privacy path. Now, the thing which is not so obvious about the right path, I believe the right path, and I think many of people out there would also agree with that, is if you think that a transparent system can also allow you to arrive at privacy. And that seems like one of those divide by zero things. Like, what? Come on. Like, what? How can something where everything's transparent achieve the goal of having only the parties privy to a private transaction know about that transaction? And so this is one of the things where I thought I read the tweet and I said, I can reply to this, but I don't think Twitter deserves all of this information. Like, really, you got 200 characters or something like that. And if you tried to put it in, you're going to say something and you're going to shorten it. And then some troll is going to pick you on the words you use because you just tried to make it curt and concise. So I said, I'm just going to let it like people mull over it, people who are smart enough to think about it. But thanks to this discussion we have here, I can take maybe a liberty, another minute or 2 minutes or so to explain the. So I will just go high level because I'm sure you
Please go ahead.
But the high level is like
Woo!
you get privacy from transparency because you can still have things be private as long as the transparent. You have to sort of pick apart what transparency means. Transparency doesn't mean just because myself and Brittany did a trade that my name and Brittany's name and what we bought and how much it was is all on the blockchain. Because if that was all in a blockchain, clearly we don't have privacy. But you can remove the personal information about a trade. Just like, hey, there's laws like GDPR rule, GDPR. Anyway, the laws, the private data, personal data privacy laws in the EU and stuff like that. There are, and in this United States as well, and Japan as well. I mean, this is a known thing. You can basically, banks do this all the time. I mean, banks like trades are for the most part, I mean, not public information, but within the organization, like all the trades, the movement of money is there. What you have to sort of censor out is who that person was or who that client was. So sometimes you can show trade data, right? For instance, if you show trade reporting for like suspicious activity reports or anything like that, you have all the amounts and everything about the trade. You just don't know who the party was. And so it's the key is removing the personal information or the private information from the trade. So you leave the trade there, and when I mean remove the private information, I don't remove it to the point where you can never trace it back, but remove it to the point where if you're just looking at the public blockchain, there's no way you can find the private information. But the key is the reverse is possible. And that's very important. What I mean the reverse is that if you have the private information, like if Brittany and I, clearly we have the private information of myself and herself, this is the trade that we did, only we know that it's that transaction on the blockchain. But if only we knew and we couldn't prove it to anybody, that's not very useful at all, right? Then if we ever decide like, hey, that was a trade, and someone says, prove it. I mean, you're just pointing at some random transaction on blockchain. I don't know that's really yours. If I couldn't prove that, then the system breaks, because then you have kind of like the opposite problem. People could, you could be accused of something, but you have no way to exonerate yourself by showing that wasn't the case. Like I can't show that wasn't, or that was my trade, so this other illegal one wasn't mine, right? So you need the reverse, and so you disassociate. And I think the white paper, which Craig points out all the time, the part where there's a firewall between the personal information and the transactional information, that's really key. That diagram there made a lot of sense to me when I first read the full white paper, because anybody in banks sees that and goes like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we do when we separate trade data from personal information data or personally traceable data. And if you have that link, you have that firewall, but myself or Brittany would be able to prove to anybody, any law enforcement officer, my Uncle Joe, whoever I wanted to prove to, I could just basically show that was mine. And there's cryptographic ways of doing that. You basically embed some shared secrets between us that only we would know. And then when we reveal that, this is the shared secret, Brittany can show that, yes, what Jerry said was the shared secret, that I also concur. And now there's fingerprints of that shared secret also in the transaction, which is meaningless to everyone until now. Now we know what that fingerprint is on that trade, on that otherwise on pseudonymous trade on transaction on the blockchain. And so that reverse is important because it allows you to prove that it wasn't you. Like, you can't be falsely accused. So that gives you what I think a lot of people wanting anonymity really want, except they just go about it with the bazooka trying to kill cockroaches, right? What they really want is the bug spray. You don't want the bazooka, you want the bug spray. And the bug spray is having transparency, but just keeping your privacy, not just blowing out any traceability. Because obviously, if you don't have any traceability at all, then the problem is not only are legal abiding citizens going to use your system, the vast majority are going to be illegal activities on the system. Because clearly, if there's no ways to trace anything, why wouldn't criminals use it? I mean, it's almost like that's kind of asking for trouble. That's like, let's make it so that, you know, there are no gambling laws at all, and no legal age drinking laws, no legal age age of majority laws. Let's just, you know, when you're born, you can just do whatever the heck you want, right? You can just, you know, you just feed your kids, like, you know, whiskey on their first birthday. That's totally fine. Okay, I guess. So yeah, yeah, that's kind of
I think a way that, because I agree with everything you said, Jerry. I think it's really important. And one of the things that I had learned from you a long time ago, and with talking with everybody in the space, is that I guess a simple way to sum up, or sum up what you just said, was basically everybody has the right to privacy, but not anonymity, because with anonymity, there's no culpability. And so you have culpability with privacy, but you don't with anonymity. And so that's the differences between those two. And a lot of people will often get both of those words commingled, right? And so they'll start thinking of them as being the same thing, whereas clearly they are not. Because if you have the right to be private with your transactions until such that you've committed a crime, in which case then you no longer have the right to that privacy anymore, because you have to be proven innocent or guilty that you did or did not commit a crime. And so in a private system where you have the right to privacy but not anonymity, then all of those things that Jerry was talking about can be verified, because, well, people think that you've committed a crime, so now they're going to come in and they're going to try to verify whether you did or did not. But in an anonymous system, there's no culpability, and you can't verify whether a crime had or hadn't been committed. So, yeah.
I will comment on one thing you said there. I think you said you have a right to privacy. I agree with that, but you don't have a right to anonymity. It made me think. I mean, maybe, and I'm not trying to. I'm just saying my opinion. I think I think maybe people do have a right. I mean, they have the choice to use anonymity. It's not like you know, you have to, you know. I mean, if you really want to be a hermit and live out in the forest somewhere, I mean, you should be able to do that and sure, be totally anonymous. But the key here is that you shouldn't think that should be the base that the rest of society wants to also adopt.
Absolutely.
The thing is that they want that, and a lot of people, usually the criminals among them, want that, because in order for the anonymous system to have the air of functionality, they need a lot of legal people using it as well to sort of shield them. Right? Hey, look, all these other people are using it. It must be useful. It's not just those drug dealers out there. Not me, but you know, because legal people use it too. So they kind of need other people to sort of buffer them. And this is why I think I honestly think that one of the reasons why Bitcoin SV gets a lot of flack from all these people who want anonymity is because if you have a privacy system but traceable, and you have an anonymous system that does the exact same thing, most law-abiding citizens will use the private but traceable one, right? Because we don't want to be mingled in with criminals. We don't want our lives like hampered and aggravated all the time by people, like by police knocking down our door saying like, did you do this? Did you do this? Like, no, right? That will happen if you start using a system where 80% of the users are criminals, right? You're just gonna get wrapped up in that. It will sort of rub off on you. And so I think if you're given the choice, most people would use one. So they don't want people to have that other choice. They just want their system to be the only choice. That way everybody has to use it. That way, the world's their oyster.
But the problem with purely anonymous systems, right, or systems that are being encouraged to be anonymous, like BTC, for example, where it's being encouraged to be more anonymous, is that in anonymous systems, the risk of those systems being everybody's going into BTC wanting that anonymity as a way of thinking like, oh, I'm going to be able to, bypass like government regulations or government law or whatever, right? And it's their way of sticking it to the man. Like, oh, I'm sticking it to the man by utilizing BTC. But what they don't understand is that in doing this, they're also helping to forge or help create or mold a system where the government is going to use that in a greater capacity against them than they could ever use against it. And so that's another issue there too, with anonymous systems.
Yes.
And
It's
so,
like kicking the bear in the balls, right?
Right.
So,
Yes. And
Like,
I would
that?
say that the anonymity aspect really came in after the introduction of SegWit. Is that right? So prior to SegWit, maybe everything was traceable. It had more, transparency. And then after SegWit, it lost a bit of that level of transparency.
It certainly lost a bit. I mean, it was one big step in trying to remove traceability. And I think although the anonymous supporters have been around since the early days, and I think Craig will say he almost after the year that Bitcoin was launched, he was already arguing one of them, who saw that Bitcoin could be this sort of holy grail project that they've always wanted to stick it to the man, right? And so they were always there, but I do believe that SegWit was a big fundamental step in materially changing the protocol to be able to facilitate more anonymity, because the act of SegWit, for listeners who think I'm just naming some sort of strange malaise or a psychiatric condition. SegWit is a segregated witness, which is just a overcomplicated term. It's like, geeks always like make these overcomplicated terms to make regular people feel stupid. I honestly think they believe it. Like, really, like, because that's what they're just doing is like they are separating the signatures. So instead of separating the signatures, let's say segregate the witness. Okay, all right, whatever you say. So whatever you say. So taking out the signatures sounds scary, right? Maybe that's why they renamed it SegWit, so that nobody would think, oh, that sounds not safe, right? You want me to write checks, but you want me to cut out the signature part of them and then hand you the signature part and then hand the rest of the check to you in 2 different envelopes. Okay, why, sir? Why do you want me to do that? Oh, it's just save space, because I don't need the signature part. I've seen it. It's good. I'll throw it away. I'll burn it, and then I'll just keep the rest of the check to cash at the bank. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. There's probably a good reason why the signatures are inherently part of the check and pretty much inherently part of all contracts that we do. And in fact, signatures is a fundamental legal basis of pretty much all legal systems in the world. And if it's not signature, it's a stamp here in Asia, right? So it's one or the other. And if you take that out, you shove that little chisel that in the crack in that chink in the armor, the legal armor, that hopefully you widen more and more and more, and eventually you just make it so that the legal system can't cope with this stuff anymore. It's just going to give up, and then we can do whatever we want. Right.
Well, to play devil's advocate real quick here, Jerry, as somebody from the banking industry, right, the banking systems, how often do people actually check the signature on anything? Like when we go to the gas station and you run it as credit and you sign your name on the little pen pad real quick, how often is that signature actually used?
It's rarely ever used, but the point is that when it does need to be used, it's there. Like, for instance, have you seen the movie Catch Me If You Can?
I have, yeah. It's one of my favorite movies.
Exactly. That movie makes so much sense. Like, it's so topical in this discussion. But yeah, I mean, he was basically, you don't really need the signatures for 98% of all the checks don't really matter. But if you have a check fraud guy like him, like the protagonist in the movie, or the antagonist, I guess,
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right, Leonardo DiCaprio. Then then if it wasn't for the fact that all his bounce checks has the signature on there, you would have nothing to trace. Once again, it gets back to traceability. You separate the signatures, you lose traceability. That is fundamentally attacking the legal basis of your blockchain, and therefore, I think, my opinion, I think this is what Craig alluded to. when he said SegWit has a fundamental problem. And everybody thought, oh, he must be talking about a big bug. SegWit's going to crash. And then when it didn't crash, he's, Craig's in it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. See, nothing happened with SegWit. It's still working. And then I was like, maybe the fundamental problem he was talking about wasn't technical. Maybe it's fundamentally a legal issue that's going to come to head, 5 years later or whatever. Because it may be a problem once they start pruning. I mean, because signatures can be pruned. And it would...
Didn't they push for more anonymity with the recent upgrade and then known as Taproot? Yeah.
It's another step in that direction, right? They're even removing the parts of the selectively hiding parts of the transaction, so that the transaction conditional logic for the payout can be blocked and then never revealed until it's actually done. So it's all moving in that direction, right? Where it's if I made an illegal deal, like nobody could ever pin me to it. As long as there's enough legal deals mixed in with my stuff, so that I have that, like it's like a mixer kind of like thing. So just because if it was all illegal, then people would just shut it down. I mean, the law enforcement, okay, we'll just shut the whole thing down. It's all illegal. But if there's enough real transactions mixed in there, okay, we can't shut it down. We're gonna have to try to pick out the bad transactions. Oh, but we can't because it's not traceable. Oh, darn. Now we're going to give up.
Are they doing this just so they don't have to increase the 1 megabyte block size? They're like trying to pick out things that they can just not store so that they can fit more into a block size? Because I feel like that's the narrative from the BTC Maxis.
That is absolutely the narrative. But it is absolutely ludicrous response and answer to anybody who's technical. I mean, even when they first proposed it in 2016, I think it was 2016, late 2016. They proposed this idea in Hong Kong, and we were thinking like, okay, at that time the on the table was upping the block size from 1 to 2, or to 4, or to 8, right? Or some gradually scaling one that would move with the average of votes, or some weird, very complex thing. But it was let's say the average of all of those was probably about 4 megabytes, right? And so at the time, but key, not just because we all knew that setting a number, an arbitrary number, was kind of silly. Like 4 megabytes may be good enough now, but how do we know how much is good enough in 5 years, right? So it's kind of silly for everybody to have a grand powwow, a poobah meeting to decide with big fuzzy bison hats and votes. Like, I think it should be 16. Right? Yeah. Oh, right. No, that's dumb. I mean, this is like we're not like the Grand Jedi Council or something like that. So we wanted to make sure it was never like this is going to be the last time that we have to talk about this thing. So we wanted one that was tied to the economy, right? This is why unlimited is the only one that makes sense, because miners make it as big as the economy demands. But so in that sort of context of discussion, they propose this thing, which is going to save us, we get 0.4 megabytes more, 0.4, like 400 kilobytes more. We go from 1 to 1.4 at best. That's at best, because there was a weird way of calculating it too. It was a very complicated weighting system they used. So if at best you're going to give me times plus 400K, that's pathetic. I mean, like that's the best you could come up with. So clearly it was, and the fact that they weren't even pitching it so much at that time, they were kind of saying, but it also makes SegWit possible. SegWit also makes things like Lightning possible, because then we can do like payment channels and all this stuff, as if we couldn't do it before. And so it was really suspicious that they paired the talks at that conference all about how SegWit has been tested already. So even though you guys have been debating about it and talking to miners and figuring out how to change the limit, which we've planted to make it sound like it's so hard to get the miners all worried, so they wouldn't want to do it, because they could just do it if they wanted to. You guys are arguing about that. We've already tested SegWit, by the way, and it's ready to roll out. And by the way, here's this talk about Lightning networks. It's a brand new thing that is going to be scaling for the next decade. And we're like, really? I mean, I think I was born yesterday. This is a bait and switch. This is like, what? You're giving me a pseudo scaling solution and another product to sell me that it's going to enable. That another product which is going to be owned by another company which is very much funded by Blockstream. Oh, I see how it goes. So basically, you're just trying to capture the entire scaling, the business, the whole blockchain. It's me and my friend companies and all my buddies are going to basically sell you the solutions. It was like,
right, without any value to it.
No value to the user, really.
And with the introduction of SegWit and Taproot and this loss of the transparency or traceability, then can you still call the BTC protocol an immutable ledger?
Yeah, it's not really a ledger so much no more, huh? It's more like, that's tough. I guess you could have grounds to say it's not really. I mean, it's definitely immutable. It's just not storing enough information to be a ledger.
Okay.
It'd be like having a giant Excel spreadsheet, but keeping out half of all of the information.
Right.
No numbers.
Right.
Or sorry, numbers but no letters. All right, there's no letters allowed. You can put numbers in it.
Right.
And so we have to find our trade by just pointing at the number. What was the number, Brittany, again? Or it was like $3.10. Oh, I find a sell with $3.10. That's our trade.
Yeah. But of course, you have to run your own nodes so that you can verify your $3.10 trade and then look it up on the blockchain to just be like, oh, which one was it? Yeah, that one. That has to be it.
That's exactly why you need to run your own node. Exactly. Because I wouldn't know that my $3.10 is different from that $3.10 because I know the timestamp. So I have to see all occurrences of 3.10 on this whole spreadsheet in order for me to be sure that one's mine.
Yeah, I think running your own node is akin to the first calculators, the people that worked in calculations, inventing the computer and then checking it with a paper and pen.
Yeah.
So they just wanted so badly, like with Babbage, for there to be this computing machine.
Yeah.
And then they go back, they say, oh, great, we got it working. Now let's check and verify. Let's do the math.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't trust the machine is working, right? So it's like, the machine says this, but let's everybody do it by hand, at least for the next year or two, to make sure that there's no bugs in the machine that would make it do arithmetic wrong.
Yeah, overcomplicated. Now, Ray of @KittyTreats on Twitter was recently a guest on Be in the Moment, and she made a great insight. She said something about as she's developing Molly Match NFT platform or game on the BSV blockchain, that her work on GitHub had a soft fork. So there was a developer resource on GitHub that she copied and then she extended with new tools. And she referred to that as a soft fork. So I thought that was very clear to understand as a non-developer, because basically a soft fork is a copy and then a continuation of the ledger. Like BCH and BSV is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, I think both hard forks and soft forks are okay. So I guess a difference is a hard fork becomes two paths that are independent of each other after the fork. A soft fork is one path. It maintains one path, but the trade-off is that the people who didn't agree with that fork, they are no longer performing the same functions that they did in the past. So they've lost functionality without knowing it. So for instance, if let me think of a good example. If we use the example of okay, everybody's double checking the Babbage machine, right? Okay, so your Babbage machine is calculating circumferences of circles or something like that, and everybody's double checking with paper. Now, if a soft fork would be like you change the machine. Okay, let's say that there's multiple machines. So everybody has a Babbage machine. And so let's say everybody's using this machine to double check a calculator. Okay, so because we don't trust HP anymore. So where you're running this mechanical monstrosity to double check what HP our calculator does. Now, a soft fork would be some magic gremlin you choose whether or not to install the gremlin. But if you install the gremlin, it's going to go into your Babbage mechanical machine and make some tinkering changes. And after that change, it will continue to double check your HP calculator. But for the people who didn't install the gremlin, it will continue running. So you think it's doing its job, except the Babbage machine always just say yes, 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 even though the HP calculator gives a bug like 1 + 1 is 16. Yes. So the people who didn't install the gremlin have a broken Babbage machine which cannot actually check the HP calculator anymore, but it just continually tells you that it's checking and everything's fine and it's saying yes. Whereas the people who did install the gremlin have a Babbage machine which is still checking their HP calculator, and if your HP calculator does say 1 + 1 is 16, the machine would say 1 + 1 is 2 actually. So in a soft fork, the ledger never breaks because everybody still has a running Babbage machine, except that a lot of those Babbage machines are not doing anything useful anymore. So
Right.
you tell me which one's better. I don't know. I honestly think that's kind of there. I mean, there's trade-offs, but I won't be too facetious and insulting on the usefulness of having a lot of people run Babbage machines which just said true all the time.
Right. Just because it's very hypey. It's a pop thing, right? It's pop. Yeah. And so now, Brittany, what do you think?
On the soft fork,
yes, because you came from BTC and then you went over to BSV. So you have your finger on the pulse of the narrative from the past several years. And so what did it look like to you then, and how does it look to you now with this change from BTC into the functionality or capabilities of BSV?
I think it's really easy to fall into groupthink in BTC. And that's really what I call it. It's a groupthink mentality. Whereas everybody kind of says and repeats the same narratives over and over and over, and then you become like a robot and you start repeating those same, and then the narrative becomes, or the goal rather becomes, to repeat that same narrative to as many people as possible so that they in turn parrot the same things as well. So it truly is like a groupthink type of scenario. And when you start picking apart from like a technical perspective, because I truly do feel like a lot of people in the BTC or even the Ethereum communities, they don't think about everything on a technical level, how it works. In fact, I could probably guarantee less than 50% of the people at BTC actually have read the white paper, right? Like it's not a narrative to understand how it works. You just need to know that it does work and that it's going to save us from everything. It's going to save us from ourselves. And so when you start actually reviewing how things work from a technical level, all of a sudden some of these things start breaking apart and the narratives start breaking apart. And that's kind of how I made the switch. It was actually Kurt who pulled me out of the group think. So thanks, Kurt. But so when you actually get out of the group think and start, hearing what the other side of this, things start making more and more sense. And so that's what happened to me moving from BTC to BSV. And I won't sit here and be so pro BSV for a second. I'm going to step back for just a second, because I do understand that there is a little bit of groupthink in the BSV community as well. Whereas, we do have that here too. At least though, I can say with the groupthink that's going on in BSV, it's actually backed by a technical perspective, whereas in BTC, it's really not, and it's just the narrative they want you to spew. So
yeah,
mm-hmm.
I think the groupthink that's prevalent in BSV are just a difference in opinion and goals. And some people have short-term goals, and some people have long-term goals. and so that drives the priorities, of
Definitely.
what they want to pitch forward. Like, what are the selling features of BSC, for instance? Okay, well, that depends on whether or not you're here for 5 years, 10 years, or the next year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also something that I truly do believe has kind of held us back a little bit, because with so many competing group thinks, right? The reason that BTC has been able to succeed is because there's only one group think, whereas in BSV, let's say there's 5. And so now you have 5 competing group thinks versus BTC's 1. Which one is able to replicate at a faster rate, 1 or 5? And unfortunately, I think that's one of the reasons that BSV isn't as far as it could be right now.
And on the groupthink, or on not so much groupthink, but the major narratives, I saw Jerry Chan's LinkedIn profile.
Oh.
And I saw your photo. You have Bitcoin, golden coin. And when you zoom in, it says, "In cryptography we trust." So is that not from a BTC narrative?
That was also probably a logo. It's from the BTC Times. Like, I probably haven't changed it. Yeah, that's a good point. I should probably change that. I'm very, very lazy when it comes to updating social media, and it's very likely I haven't touched up, whatever picture I put up there since 2015. And I think back then I wasn't so aware. I mean, of like the things which were the things which I was concerned with the whole Bitcoin projects and movement at the time were not the ones I'm so concerned with now. We were too caught up in how to scale. So literally, I probably was just like, I need a picture that has a Bitcoin on it, and I just Googled it, and the first one that looked good, I just picked it, and I didn't really care what it said.
Okay. I wondered, I thought, I wonder what that means. I mean, do you believe in the cryptography, or it's just seriously that happened to be on that good looking photo?
It's definitely the latter.
Okay.
If there is a catchphrase or a motto or slogan that I did take to, like the one I personally took to back in those days, and I'm quite partial to presently, is the virus in numeris, which is Latin for strength in numbers. And that was actually on the bottom of quite a number of the coins or the logos back then. Virus in numeris. I don't know how to pronounce Latin since I don't know any fluent speakers. Sounds kind of like virus. It looks like virus in numeris. So some people say, like, numerous viruses. What's up?
No. Right. So what does that mean? Strength in numbers, then?
Oh, well, it's kind of like the power of just the fact that we have this digital asset, right? These digital currencies, virtual currencies, they're all just numbers floating around in computers. So it's kind of it was kind of, I guess, captured the zeitgeist of the times when it was like, well, could we really create a system which could function as money, which would become popular enough? And just the fact that it was getting popular was really kind of showing that there is strength in just numbers. And there's also several meaning in that too, right? Because if there's it's one of those things where, even back then there was a little bit Ponzi-ish. It was like, Bitcoin can only succeed if enough people believe it can succeed. So we only have strength in numbers. So let's get more people believing in Bitcoin. For whatever reason, you can sell to them, right? Doesn't matter what reason, right? So I guess that was a little bit of the Wild West back then, when everybody was just shocked that it was actually getting traction, and that shocked me. And that was the thing I was really woke me up and got me to, like, leave financial industries, because at first I looked at this white paper, it looked really interesting, but I thought, it's probably going to blow over in a year or two. Like, digital currency has been tried in the past, and it's always just fallen flat on its face. So nothing about this. I mean, the white paper seemed kind of interesting because it seemed like it was all economically incentivized to self-perpetuate. But but I didn't think it would really catch on. So when it did catch on, I just kind of thought like, wow, maybe there is just the fact that if enough people start believing it, if it works for whatever reason they think it's working for them, then it works.
Right.
It does work.
Just like Pokemon, right?
Yes.
You got to get people involved playing the game.
Yes, exactly.
Gamers. Yeah. And so the group chat, he has been on fire today. And this latest question he's asked is, what would be the different BSV groups? So what do y'all think there?
As far as like group thinks within BSV?
Yes. And in fact, I think I'll be rude and interrupt and just say my own opinion here. With the group thinks in BSV, I certainly have noticed that. I really like Jack Liu. I think Jack Liu is awesome, and his ideas are very challenging. And I think a lot of times people take offense to them. And I just think he's brilliant, and I love him. Not in a crush kind of way, but just in an adoration kind of way. Like, he rocks. He's a rock star. And I think that also following along with Craig too much is a part of groupthink, where it could be good to challenge Craig or just think something different or question him a bit more. And then, of course, I think that I love the business side and the ways that data can be used on chain for the world to lead to a genuine information age with greater efficiency. And I would want to be more involved in that type of groupthink. Mm-hmm. So that's my spiel. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. I think a groupthink could be, listening to Jack or Calvin and Craig and kind of like Coin Geek. And then you've also got like the Dean Littles out there, right? And then, of course, you've got the Twetchers and, then you've got people like Satoshi, right? Who kind of, so, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different kind of narratives about how and which way we should move the project forward. People definitely have their own opinion about that, but at the end of the day, it's BSV is kind of whatever it is that you want to make of it. It's got that versatility, so it can allow that type of multitude of group thinks. But I think at scale it would have worked better if we had that type of versatility versus where we are right now. Because I feel like we're spreading our resources a bit too thin in the way that we are approaching it at this moment in time.
Well, we certainly could use more resources. So I think we are kind of hitting the point of inflection where all of the hard, fruitless work, seemingly fruitless work that people have been doing for the past 3 years or so, is starting to pay dividends. Like the seeds have been planted for 3 years and nothing's growing. I think I see some sprouts starting to grow up now, because it just takes time to germinate. And so I think, you have the Jack Lew's, which are like, we need to do stuff now. And it's like we got to do this. This is being done wrong. And this is being done wrong. And yes, I mean, being such a radical element has, I guess every ecosystem needs a catalyst. And so that has its positive aspects of it. I prefer to let other people do that sort of positive catalyzing. But to go, not to single Jack out specifically, because I think there are plenty of other catalysts in the system.
Of course.
But to categorize them, because that was a question, like what are the groups? Okay, let's say I think, and I wish I probably thought about this more in the past, so I can have like an answer at the tip of my tongue. But generally there's the group that will be more leaning towards the law will see us through, right? I like for like, I don't care how wrong it seems or how wrong it is actually practically being treated as, but the law will finally work itself in the end, and I'm willing to wait until that happens, right? So there's that group. And then there's the group which is like, look, I'm all for following the law. I'm not going to cross the line into doing things which are semi-gray legal, but I am following the law. But I'm not also going to bank on the law, making my buck, right? I mean, we're going to have to adjust our business models to account for the fact that we don't have the pull that we need. So we can't just wait for patents, in other words, right? I mean, that kind of we don't have that amount of back funding or whatever to do that. So they're the pragmatists. I think I'm one of the more of the pragmatists, and then there is the radical. Well, then maybe not even the radical. Then there are some anonymity, sector guys still in BSV. I think we pruned most of them, but they're most were pruned with the BCH split. But I think because they clearly wanted it enough that they split the whole Bitcoin Cash because of that. But there were still some stragglers, and those stragglers I think have finally been weeded out. And you know what? I have to say, if somebody was keeping score between anonymity versus the non-anonymity group, anonymity is losing every time. I mean, they're dropping like flies.
Yeah, they don't have that resilience.
How many anonymous projects and how many anonymous people have stuck around long enough to deliver anything useful, or to see it through, not just I wrote something useful. There you go. Yeah.
Let me ring the bell.
So X, wham, what was it? Family Feud, right? X strike, 3 strikes for anonymous. So far, yeah, but there are still a few. There are a couple of them who are not uber not openly sued on anonymous, rah, but they would rather things be more anonymous, and then you have the ones, the contrarians, right? Like, if everything's going this way, then I'm going to go the exact opposite way because it seems like this way everybody's going this way too much, so I'm going to do the opposite way. Maybe it's going to do better. And I think free market will always have those radicals. So I think that's kind of am I missing any groups?
What would be an example of a contrarian in BSV?
Oh, like a Jack Lew or
okay.
No, we don't want to fundraise this way. We don't want to use anything traditional. If we're going to build a new system, we're going to build it from scratch, right? I'm going to go door to door and sell hand out pamphlets until this idea works. Okay,
I see.
I don't know. Maybe a lot of stuff saying will, one out of the 10 things he says will actually pan out working, but. I don't know. I can't. I wouldn't be able to say. I don't have the conviction he does of a lot of the things. So I like to be right with the things that I say or predict, rather than say 5 things and maybe have one of them turn out right. So I guess I'm not that much of a visionary.
You are, Jerry. You are, because you did speak out, and I remember, in my case, I left this kind of security to risk to jump in to be in this space. And I've done many different jobs. And at one point, I was walking through a grocery store, hanging price tags, listening to the recording of you and Brittany.
Oh, really?
And I started cheering in the tortilla aisle. I was just so happy when I heard you speaking to Brittany about how we can have this transparency and that it's not just all about anonymity. So I think that, yeah, you are definitely visionary, thought leader, someone that we look to, and that it takes all types. It takes all types here, and it's all hands on deck. And like Brittany said about the division, again, I know we talked about this on our road trip too. And again, I say just charge forward.
Yeah.
And never give up, even if it looks fleeting. I know that especially when they have all of the major speaker boxes like the media that will perpetuate their narrative and focus all the attention on them and all of the hype and the pop culture aspect of the scene, it can be discouraging. I just saw something on LinkedIn that was all like a music video, and it was all about NFTs. And I thought, yeah, that's really pop. That's super pop hot and everything. But where's the substance? And I will bless it and I will carry forward, focused on substance. And, now I'm working. Someone said, "Oh, what's CoinGeek?" just the other day. And I said, "Oh, it's a newspaper, about the whole data economy running on the on-chain protocol." And, he says, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, I have a podcast too. And, I just say perseverance, never give up." And he says, "Oh no, slogging it out, that never works. If something is good, it will simply work." And I said, "Well, Rockefeller had that resilience. And what about the light bulb? Because people didn't accept the light bulb when it first came out. They were afraid of it." So don't let anybody tell you otherwise, even if they're getting their curry chicken pie and they look super fly, making their little PowerPoint presentations in the booth, and you're just slugging it away, working. I just say, carry on, charge forward, never give up. And we are victorious, and we will continue to be victorious, and we will bring about the best for everybody. And in the past, all these people that are all going like this about their narratives in the trendy scene, it's just fluff. Well, I shouldn't use that word.
It is just fluff, but it also points to consumerism, right? What appeals most to groupthink as far as consumerism is concerned, which is it's like they want it fast, they want it now, they don't want to have to wait. And if you can just give them, 15 seconds, that's really all their attention span is going to last, is that 15 seconds to 1 minute. And if you can capture their attention in that 15 seconds to 1 minute, then you've got it. You've got whatever it is that you're trying to pump at them subliminally for those 15 seconds to 1 minute,
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm sorry, Jay. It's something I've been thinking about a lot as far as like my YouTube channel is concerned, because typically speaking, people will watch like the first 8 minutes of my videos, right? It's pretty much guaranteed that if you click on my video, you're going to watch at least the first 8 minutes of that. Now, how do I get people to watch the other, 50 minutes of it, basically 52 minutes? Because generally speaking, my videos are like an hour long. But the algorithm, if you can get past that 8 minutes mark, then typically speaking, I'll get up to 22 minutes. So now people, if they watch a little bit past that 8 minute mark, the algorithm will pick it up and spit it out a little bit more. And then all of a sudden it'll say 22 minutes is the average for this video. But I have never gotten a video to 100% view time as of yet, which is just to say my average view time on any of my videos, the best view time is 27 minutes. So how do we get people past that mark to listen about BSV and stuff? Because people's attention spans are so, you got stuff going on in your day, you're doing things,
You're absolutely right. And I think this is perfect, because it was dovetailing of what I was going to say. Was that's the one element, that's the one we don't have enough of in BSV, in Bitcoin SV. We don't have the sales people. And I've always, no, I'm not going to say I discounted, but I've underappreciated the value of a good salesperson, because as a technologist, you always think like, sales, whatever, that gets handled, as long as we build a good product, that's going to save us, right? I mean, so that's another groupthink group, right? The people who think that technology will save you. Build a great platform and they will come. No, that was a book, dude. That was literally a book. All right. The guy wrote the book, and now everybody uses it as if it's like some advice for life. It's like, no, you build a baseball diamond, ghosts are not going to come up from the cornfield. Grandfather's dead,
true,
man.
Though. It does, yeah.
But not all the time.
True.
And so I say this facetiously, and I also say this because I'm going to answer your question, Brittany, of how you keep those people. I hope how you keep those people engaged. so there is the people who think that you will build something and then eventually it'll just work because I have a technologically superior product. There will also be people who will build something that says, because I did it with micropayments, it's going to work without sales, right? Twitch. I mean, but some platforms which had everything working, but where was their marketing campaign? Why is Donald Trump making his own platform when you had a perfectly working one with micropayments already? Maybe a couple of dollars thrown into marketing would help. So that's actually really, really a lesson to be learned, that we don't have enough people, like founders, people in projects at BSV who give enough credit that, you build a good product. That's wonderful. Now stop building the features. I know you want to build a second feature. God knows I do. Version 2, I want to build the next thing, to add on to this thing. No, stop. Take the money. Pay a couple of salespeople. Pay a couple of people like, yourselves, right? Brittany, Rory, mavens, people who will get people engaged, right? People who people listen to. And you need to get the word out, because if nobody uses it, your product could be the best thing ever. Like, I lived through working with OS2 when, it was competing with Windows, and it was supposed to be better. It crashed less, apparently. And then, I worked with IBM voice type, and there was Dragon, and that failed. Everything IBM did failed, by the way.
I know, the old stale cracker, but I do love it.
Because they didn't sell it. They said, you know what? We don't need to sell the retail. We'll just let our consultants and their services department make all our money, because they've always traditionally have. And we'll let the retail sales, all the riffraff work in that department, because we don't really care about consumer sales. So anyway, but I've taken this circuitous route to go back to that YouTube algorithm problem. And I have recently been watching this one YouTuber, which I just happened onto. It's about networking techie stuff, really dry stuff, like installing servers dry.
Ooh, cool. Okay.
Literally installing network accessible storage, load balancers, installing a firewall. How exciting does that sound?
I like it.
Really? Okay,
yes.
You are in you're the tail end of the curve. You're like me. I like it too.
Yeah.
But I know I'm like the 5%, or if 5% of the people who will watch that and go I'm going to watch the whole video. Well, one, because if I don't watch the whole video, I'm not going to be able to follow the steps to get the thing installed. So clearly I need to watch the whole video. But for things which are not instructional, he talks in such an interesting way. And what captivates me is that he's really entertaining to listen to. He has a pacing to the voice. It's well edited. So he has a team doing post-production and stuff like that. But he also is smart. So he's obviously not just a guy reciting lines. So that's actually, it's getting that right host. And I'm not to say that any of us are the right host. I think that we need those things every so often, before YouTube cuts the commercial, right? There would always be some sort of breaking the fourth wall jokes. And I think that direct, talking to the audience sometimes, what am I doing here? You guys are all watching YouTube anyway because you have nothing better to do today. I know about that. I know what you're doing. It's okay. I am too. Okay, let's continue, kind of thing. Those kind of little brain viruses that you kind of stick in make the people want to subconsciously just watch the whole thing to see what else you're going to say. That might be funny. So I think that making a poppy, I guess, is what I would think. I'm speaking from a position of no expertise whatsoever, since I don't even have a working YouTube channel. So don't listen to me. But
I've seen your YouTube channel. I watched it and I subscribed.
Really?
Oh, which brings me to subscribe to the channel, everyone.
Hey, look at that.
Subscribe. See, I've got my Mickey Mouse thumb. Yeah. Nice. Oh, Jerry, yes, please. Subscribe.
I'm going to have to make one of those so you can do the video handoff thing. So you hand it off to me.
I'll pull it down from. You can hand it to Jerry, and I'll grab it from Jerry and pull it down.
Let's do it. That's great. Yes. And so I know what you're saying, but I guess I'm more the contrarian style, because with this podcast, starting it was my Hona.app goal. And I met someone on LinkedIn that really sparked it. They had a great topic, and I said, hey, be my guest, and it started. So I have left it open, flowing conversation style, and left it as long as it goes, and not edited it heavily. And I think that's because I've learned in the past, let people be themselves and go with the flow. The record is there. If anyone finds this interesting, they could listen to the whole thing. If they skip around, that's okay too. I'm not worried about them all loving it, but it's a record, and it's for us. It's like a happening. We're meeting together. And I think that's important. And here we are in this beautiful lawn of StreamYard in the virtual world. And Sylvain is in the chat. So this is a real moment. This is a virtual world, and it's an experience, and the record is there if anyone wants to see. And Brittany, I do watch your entire show. So, I don't know what kind of calculators they're using on the YouTube analytics.
It only shows the average, right? It only shows the average.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that, I mean, I really do appreciate anybody that takes the time to watch any of my episodes. But yeah, I could show you right here. So like even with the oh no, it's not gonna let me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It says average view on my latest video is 21 minutes, which is up.
Which is 21 out of an hour?
Yeah, 20 minutes and 6 seconds out of an hour, which is up from my average of 12 minutes to 14 minutes.
I think average of anything, a third is pretty good. Because if you kind of think about it, I mean, like, well, obviously it's impossible to have the average of 100. So I think even probably the best YouTubers will probably have an average of like 70 or something. Like I can't imagine every person who starts watching finishes to the end. The statistics say that if you have anything close to 50, you should have like a plaque on your wall that says
Yeah, I know that's why a lot of YouTubers will switch to doing like 10 to 15 minute videos, because you're more likely to engage for the entire 10 to 15 minutes if they're only that long. Anything after that, it's super hard to keep them engaged.
That is true.
So
this is more of the length of a podcast. I don't mind listening to an hour, no problem.
Yeah.
Watching it's like, my arm's tired holding this thing now.
Exactly.
Typically speaking, like I'll watch other podcasts or whatever, like, shows like this when I'm doing the dishes or I'm trying to get the house chores done, I'll put it up on there and I just go to town doing the dishes, watching the podcast. So, I mean, that's
a lot of dishes you got, Brittany. An hour?
But I don't have like an hour's worth. Yeah. So, but I'll carry it around. I'll get the dishes done, go do the laundry, that sort of thing. But yeah. Exactly. If I finish before that hour, I'm definitely turning it off. Like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go do what I want to do now. That sort of thing. So I don't know. Anyway, Rory, I was going to say, before we started recording in here, you were actually talking about like the intersection of like privacy and transparency, but you also brought up like Monero and CBDCs. So I was curious if you had some thoughts on that before,
Thank you, Brittany. Yes. I wonder if you both would mind meeting again. Could we meet again and talk about CBDC?
Let's do it.
Yes. Thank you. Because it's so important to have that interaction together. But yes, and with Sylvain as well. Sylvain is representing Canada. Right, so this is the start of a conversation.
It was nice seeing you, Jerry. It's nice seeing you, Rory. I appreciate you guys coming on. I enjoyed the conversation today.
Me too. I'm grateful.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. This was fun. Let's
Thank
do it
you.
again. And I do like the fact this format. We'll just keep it like, chat for the record.
Exactly.
For the record.
So, well, thank you, and have a lovely rest, a good evening, Jerry, and have a beautiful day, Brittany. And Sylvain, you as well. Have a good day up there in Canada. And yes, thank you to our audience as well. Please do subscribe to the channel as well as hit the like button. And then welcome to Be in the Moment with us all again soon.
Take
See you
care.
later.